Hello and welcome to the interview. With me is a very special guest today, one of Pakistan's most famous diplomats and one of the most prominent critics, would I say, of the current dispensation, Mr. Hussain Haqqani. Welcome to WION.
Pleasure.
Let's start with what's happening between India and Pakistan. Would you say that ties are at an all-time low today, with the diplomats being allegedly harassed and things going the way they are? There are no talks.
The misfortune of Pakistan-India relations is that there have been far too many occasions when people have said the relationship is an all-time low. The fact of the matter is that we are now at a rather juvenile phase of the relationship, because when you think that ringing somebody's doorbell at 3 a.m. is the way to advance statecraft, you are not really advancing statecraft. I think India and Pakistan are at a very difficult moment, but not necessarily an all-time low. It can go lower, God forbid. At the end of the day, Pakistan has to take into account India's very genuine concerns about terrorism. And India has to recognize that Pakistan has a lot of difficulties that it is trying to deal with, or maybe not dealing with effectively. So India has to show some patience while Pakistan can reimagine itself, while Pakistan definitely has to act very quickly on the issue of terrorism. And both sides have to recognize that acting like little children in harassing each other as diplomats and not behaving like modern states is not going to advance the relationship.
You say India must show patience. It's been 70 years. Isn't it asking a bit too much of India, given the fact that the man who perpetrated the worst terror attack in India, on Indian soil, is a man who's making a political entry in Pakistan? The fact that cross-border terrorism continues, the fact that some would say the Indian Prime Minister put his best foot forward and Pakistan probably squandered the opportunity.
You probably know my views on that. I personally feel that Pakistan is shooting itself in the foot by allowing Hafiz Saeed to continue to operate and to give him political space. As far as the question of patience is concerned, India is a 5,000-year civilization and a 5,000-year-old country. 70 years is just a very small blip in India's history. On the other hand, Pakistan is only a 70-year-old country. So while people like me question a lot of Pakistani policies, I also at the same time advise my friends in India that do not get swayed by the daily news cycle the way countries with a short history are much more easily prone to do. There will be an India long after all these little episodes are gone. And so it's important to have the long view rather than look at everything only from the point of view of the daily news cycle.
I'm sure there will be an India long after this, but sometimes your patience is seen as your weakness, and that's something that India wouldn't want.
I don't think anybody in the world sees India as weak, and I don't think India's top leadership sees India as weak. I think that quite often what happens is that the 24-hour news cycle drives people to have to respond to certain things. I'm sure that if these things were happening in, say, the 1960s, India would have responded very differently, because it wouldn't have been the daily news cycle, there wouldn't have been any screaming news anchors in the evening. An Indian Prime Minister at that time would have looked and said, we'll figure out another way of teaching them a lesson rather than behaving exactly like they are behaving with us.
I'll be the last person to defend screaming news anchors, but I have to say that this sounds like an excuse, that because there are 24 hours news channels which have turned themselves into outrage factories, countries behave a certain way. And I come back to the question, would you say that the Indian Prime Minister tried with the vote-taking ceremony and Pakistan did not make the
I hope
most
you
of
are
the
familiar with my
opportunity?
views. I do think that in this particular instance, the Indian Prime Minister, and not only the current Prime Minister but the preceding Prime Minister as well, they have tried very hard, and unfortunately Pakistan has not been as responsive as it could have been or should have been.
So was it the political dispensation in Pakistan that was not interested? Was it the army?
I think it's not about the political dispensation per se. I think Pakistan's complicated reality is that Pakistan has built itself up as an ideological state. The unfortunate part of that ideology is that ideology is based on negative feelings towards Pakistan's largest neighbor, India. That makes it very difficult for any dispensation, political or military, to actually change direction. That is why in my new book, Reimagining Pakistan, my core argument is that Pakistan needs to give up that ideological orientation and become a pragmatic state. I don't think anybody in India wants to take back Pakistan or reabsorb Pakistan. There are many people in India who feel that Pakistan should not have been created and that it would have been better if the original historic India had been retained. But now that Pakistan exists, everybody wants to figure out how India and Pakistan can be good neighbors. And in that, Pakistan's ideological obsessions do become a problem, both for India and, in my opinion, even more so for Pakistan. Pakistan's progress has really been impeded by its negative feelings towards India and its obsession with India. And Pakistan would do much better by recognizing India as an opportunity for itself, in economic terms, in cultural and social terms. You cannot deny your own history. And a lot of Pakistan's history is actually one of connection with and association with India.
Right, and denial is one thing and censorship is another. What do you make of this crackdown on media houses in Pakistan, even the likes of GeoTV, which one would assume was largely pro-government?
The problem in Pakistan is that the deep state of Pakistan, the intelligence services and the military intelligence apparatus that runs the country, has a very narrow view of what it means to be patriotic. Wherever that has happened in history, it has been counterproductive. And Pakistan is a semi-authoritarian state. It's not authoritarian to the extent of, say, for example, a fascist state where nobody can say anything. But what can be said and how it can be said is controlled to a very large extent. And the more control is exercised, the less space there is to consider alternative ways forward for the country. The recent media crackdown is a case in point. The effort that is being made right now is to make everybody conform to a very specific worldview. And the truth is that that specific worldview does not serve Pakistan well. Pakistan would be better off if there are more voices, including voices that go as far as I do. But people need to hear what are the choices available to the country. Only recently, the United Nations Children's Fund came up with a report which showed that Pakistan now has the world's highest mortality rate. Now, this is a country that has the world's 6th largest population, 6th largest military, is believed to have the 13th greatest firepower in the world, and 6th largest nuclear arsenal. And yet, we also have the world's highest infant mortality rate. We need to face those problems rather than living in denial. Unfortunately, those who want to impose denial on us do not want these problems discussed openly.
Do you think this presages a soft coup? Every time there's a churn in Pakistani establishment, we say that possibly there's a coup. Then some others say the army doesn't need a coup; it's running the government from the back.
Well, I say that the Pakistan army has now mastered the art of the non-coup coup. So basically, they don't need a coup. They did it the last time in 1999. They had to jump over the Pakistani television headquarters, walls and gates to take over the television station to announce their coup d'etat. I think that now they have figured out how to control and manipulate public opinion, how to control and manipulate politicians, and how to control and manipulate judges. And through that, they basically get what they want, which is a certain policy outcome. When you can do that, why take the responsibility of running the affairs of the state directly? You decide what will happen and you let others do it for you.
You also made a point that Pakistan seems to have convinced itself of its indispensability in the war against terror. But over the past 1 year, we've seen some tough statements from America. We've seen aid being cut. Donald Trump is walking the talk, albeit slowly, according to India. But would you say that there is a certain degree of disillusionment now in Rawalpindi?
I think that what Rawalpindi and Islamabad both have to come to terms with is that the world never has endless patience. You pushed me back when I suggested that India needs to have patience, which was a statement in a very specific context of diplomats and how to treat each other in normal intercourse of nations. But the world has trusted Pakistan, mistrusted Pakistan, trusted it again, and then found that the promises are not being kept, especially on the question of dealing with terrorist safe havens. And I think that the United States is no longer willing to trust Pakistan's assurances without verification. But it's not just the United States. In the Financial Action Task Force, a lot of other countries said that Pakistan has given assurances before and not cracked down on terrorist funding. So, and then above all, having jihadi groups in Pakistan is basically inviting trouble for Pakistan. So Pakistan should have acted, and it should have acted in its own interest. The fact that the Pakistani deep state decided that no, this is not our interest is in protecting those people whom the rest of the world considers as terrorists, has placed Pakistan in a position where Pakistan's strategic location and Pakistan's availability as a strategic partner to the world's major powers is not going to be enough for Pakistan to be able to maintain itself the way it has become accustomed to maintaining itself.
So then what explains the cosmetic moves, the house arrest time and again of the likes of Hafiz Saeed? Only yesterday I heard that the Jamaat-ud-Dawa is changing its name. It seems nobody is convinced that Pakistan is making a serious effort to crack down on terror outfits.
I think it seems sometimes that the Pakistani leadership takes certain steps to just tell itself that actually we are really doing something, forget about others. But basically what is needed is a great big leap forward which Pakistan's establishment is not willing to do. Whether it's in India, in relations with India, relations with Afghanistan, and relations with jihadi groups. Those relationships are all being managed rather than changed. There is a consistency. And in my writings, in fact, all 4 books, I've shown how there is a consistency in the worldview that dictates Pakistani policy, and then therefore there is a consistency in the policies. So we will see many steps forward and steps backward. I once wrote that the Pakistani attitude on terrorism is to take 2 steps forward under international pressure, 2 steps backward when the international pressure subsides, and be ready to take another step forward when the pressure comes back again. But basically what it means is that you are standing in the same place.
So if they are going to be standing in the same place, what explains the Bajwa doctrine, for example? The army is anyway running everything, so why come out?
I think the Bajwa doctrine is the same as the Rahil Sharif doctrine, and the Rahil Sharif doctrine was the same as the Kayani doctrine, which was the same as the Pervez Musharraf doctrine. And in fact, I go as far as saying that all of them are basically rooted in the Ayub Khan doctrine. And what are the main elements of it? First, that Pakistan is constantly a state under siege. Second, that the Pakistani military is the only guarantor of Pakistan's survival. Third, that India is Pakistan's permanent enemy, and therefore Pakistan has to continue to try and outsmart or outmaneuver India in the region. And fourth, that as long as Pakistan is strategically located, there will always be a major power in the world that will underwrite Pakistan's economy and Pakistan's military action. But I personally feel that this is all a very, not only just a short-term, but a very short-sighted policy. The fact of the matter is that Pakistan has received more aid over the years from the United States, for example, than South Korea.